Welcome to the Temple of Surf, the podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to share something close to my heart. We just launched the Temple of Surf apparel line. T-shirt, hoodies, caps and more, all inspired by the spirit of surfing and the stories we celebrate here. And if you have little ones who love the ocean, don't miss out our children book series available now on Amazon. Fun adventure about surfing, friendship and the sea. By supporting the books and apparel, you're also supporting the podcast and helping us to keep the surf culture alive for future generations. Mahalo! Welcome to a brand new episode of the Temple of Surf, the podcast. Today, we are honored to welcome legendary surfboard shaper Roger Hall. Roger Hall is one of those craftsmen whose work represents the true soul of surfboard building. Decades of experience, deep knowledge of wave riding, and a lifelong dedication to the art of shaping surfboard by hand. Throughout his career, Roger has built boards for generations of surfers, constantly refining, designing, while staying connected to the timeless principle that makes a surfboard come alive under a surfer's feet. His works reflects an era where shaping was not about mass production, but about understanding the ocean, the surfer, and the magic that happens when the two connect. In this episode, we discuss Roger's journey into surfboard shaping, the evolution of surfboard design through the decades, craftsmanship, material, rail shapes, rocker line, and how surfboards have changed along the surfing itself. We also talk about the importance of experience, intuition, and the relationship between shaper and surfer, a relationship that remains at the heart of authentic surf culture. This conversation is a deep look into the history, philosophy, and craftsmanship behind surfboard design from one of the true masters of the craft. Please enjoy this very special conversation with legendary surf shaper Roger Hall. Good afternoon, Mr. Roger. How are you and where are you today?
Very well, thank you. I am in my home office in Ruakaka in Northland in New Zealand.
Wow. So it's we are separated by we are on the two opposite sides of the world, but fantastic. Thank you so much for finding the time for me and for the podcast today. Today we're going to talk about surfboard shaping, of course. That is a topic very dear to me, but with an incredible story, because you started when you were 13 years old, right?
I did, yes. Yeah, 1971.
Wow. So if people do kind of a very quick calculation, is 55 years, right?
Yep. I don't know where the time went. It's been a real life's journey.
I'm sure. It's like I had an episode recently, about Jeff McCallum of McCallum Surfboard, that he was saying surfboard shapers are not here for the money, are not here for making a quick buck, but they're here because they love what they're doing, and it takes a lot of dedication, passion, and for doing that for 55 years means that you dedicated your whole life to this craft.
Exactly. And it's great to hear guys like Jeff voice that too. In this modern day of where surfing's gone compared with how it was when I started, it's really refreshing to hear Jeff McCallum's kind of view on it from the point of view of, the passion and the art and the creativity of it.
Yes.
As opposed to the corporations and the mass consumerism and that side of it, which has crept in, which is changing things quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. There is like a whole topic, of course, it's a big topic, of course, of preserving the craftsmanship and preserving the craftsman, obviously being a surfboard shaper, it's a difficult thing to be, right? Because you guys are staying in factories that are not the healthiest place in the world, right? Of course, there is health and safety, but you have all the smell and all the dust and all the thing. And for a human being to be able to commit to that.
And all the overheads to pay for.
And on top of that, yes, on top of that, there are a lot of costs. Of course, depends of where you are located in the world, but usually a lot of people has a lot of cost to pay, a lot of people to support, a lot of families, and selling surfboards out there is difficult when you have like fierce competition from other players that are like doing machine building and heavy distribution, so heavy distribution.
It's an interesting thing because we saw it when windsurfing came in the 80s. Windsurfing boomed really quickly. And the way that windsurfers found their way to the customers changed quite quickly from factory build to selling through retail and actually being built in other technologies overseas, and then being so more like a mass production thing, and then being sold through retailers. So the sales of windsurfers very quickly changed from the guys that were making them, shaking hands with the customer and handing over their new board, to the customers walking into a retail outlet somewhere where the boards weren't made and picking them up from there. And it took a long time, but that has happened to surfing as well.
Yeah, definitely. And part of the margin has been given to the retail shop, right? And that margin was very needed to the factory, right? It was part of the revenues and a very important part. So definitely there's been a huge evolution, and things have been gone very difficult lately for many, many shapers. But what is nice to see, at least from my perspective, is that people do not give up. They continue.
No, we don't give up. I think surfing is such a special thing, and shaping surfboards, especially in the cottage industry scale. It's very hands-on. It's very creative. It's inspiring. You inspire yourself as well as inspiring others and be inspired by others. So it's a very positive, buzzy thing to be involved in. It's, a creative outlet.
Definitely. We are all in for the passion, for the passion of surf, for the passion of surf photography, shaping surfboards.
It gets in your blood.
Yeah.
It gets in your blood.
Exactly. We cannot live without. There are so many questions I have for you today. The first one I ask everyone on the show is, in your opinion, what is the most important thing in surfing?
Well, as much as humans like to make it all about themselves, I think the most important thing in surfing is the waves.
Yes.
The waves are the hero, right?
Of course.
And I think, waves are very beautiful, and it's almost like surfing is sacred because of the waves. And it's like some weather somewhere generates this pulse that travels through the ocean and arrives where you are, and it hits at a certain angle, and the sandbanks a certain way, and the wind has to be just right, and the tide, and when it all comes together, it's so fickle. And it's just amazing. It still amazes me to this day how it even happens. And you get waves that are just absolutely beautiful to ride. So that's what I think waves is the answer, the waves themselves.
Yeah, definitely. The waves are the ultimate source of energy, that comes to us through the ocean. Then there are also the surf pools nowadays that are different story. But nevertheless, without waves, there is no surf. And that's like, it's very pragmatic approach, right? So.
Well, I think the wave pools is where it comes back to the humans making it about themselves again.
Of course.
Taking it away from nature.
Yes. But it's also nice for like people that living inside in land, like for instance in America, where distances are like huge between being in the center of America and next to the coast, right? In Italy, where I'm from, it's 1 hour drive, 1 hour and a half drive to the coast. So it's not something like impossible to do. But I think if you are in the middle of Ohio and you want to go and surf, driving, it will
You need a wave pool.
yes.
You need a wave pool.
And so I think the human being find a way to create something where it was not, right. So it's good for the stock, I'm sure.
Yeah, this is. I think the wave pool thing is quite controversial because there's a lot of good aspects to it, but I think it's got the potential to change the course of surfing. And so the future will tell. The future will tell us. But yeah, I look at the wave pool thing and I go, yep, it's cool, but what does it really mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's like the mountain and the X Games for snowboard. You have these channel that are artificially made where people can jump and do the, the like acrobats. They can move around, but the channel is totally artificially made and has nothing to do with the mountain itself. Maybe the snow is the only thing that has in common with the mountain. The mountain is usually a slope, right? And this is done in order to show people the skills of these athletes. So maybe the surf pool is the same thing. It's like it's a man-made. What has in common with the ocean is that there is water, but the wave. Those perfect waves, they are very rare to be found.
Well, that's where it becomes a sport.
Yes.
That's where it's almost like man is forcing it to become a sport. When I got into surfing, and for many years, surfing was never referred to as a sport because that was before pro surfing. And there used to be debates, what is surfing? What is this thing we do? Is it an art form? Is it a dance? Is it an expression? It wasn't called a sport. And so there's many people that go surfing that aren't involved in competition. They go and do it because of the joy that they experience and that sort of sacredness of it. And I don't think they're doing it as a sport. It's got a deeper meaning than that. But if you look at pro surfing, then yeah, that's a sport. And I think the wave pools also kind of run on that theme of surfing being a sport.
Yeah.
I don't like the definition myself.
Oh, in effect, yes, I was commenting about that recently, and surfing as a sport, it's of course great to exist. I've always been there, but today the pro surfers, they have huge difficulties in finding money and sponsors and to perform at that time at that level, and in a certain way we are going towards the direction of transforming surf as a true sport as per the usual, let's say, Olympics definition, but at the same time there are no finances to support the sport itself, which is the big brands that were there, they're not sponsoring anymore so much. The small brands that have nothing, and then we found stickers on the surfboards that are they have nothing to do with the surf culture and surf itself.
Exactly.
Right.
And if it goes too far down that track, then you'll have people who will actually want to control what the surfboard is that's used in those competitions. And so then, potentially it can only be made in certain factories out of certain materials to certain specifications. And that, to me, takes the soul away from what makes surfing so special, because that cuts out all of the grassroots creativity.
I was reading.
That takes it out of it. takes it out of the cottage industry where people, come up with ideas and make a board and go out and ride it. And they're not doing it for that sports side of it. They're doing it because they love it and they want to feel what that feels like under their feet. They want to get another, feeling of joy or a sensation out of the change they made to that surfboard. They're not thinking necessarily about selling thousands of them, but they might be able to turn somebody on to this little thing that they discover. And it might be serendipity. They might discover it by accident. They might change something and find out that actually they gained a sensation in another way that was unexpected. So all of that gets removed if it becomes like a P-class yachting where all the contestants have to use exactly the same craft.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Stab in the Dark, the one that I've done with all the shapers lately, Kelly Slaters, and trying to understand who shaped the board. If everyone...
Yeah, well, that's kind of cool, but at the same time, it's quite flawed. It's not a perfect system.
No.
But hey, nothing is.
I was thinking, in this world, we have to be very careful because we read a lot of news. And in the past, the fact checking was done by the person that was publishing the news. Nowadays, we have to double check and triple check if what we are reading is true or not. But nevertheless, I was reading that Rachel Tilley, that she's the 3-time world champion of longboard, and she's surfing for Joshua Martin, or her father before, Terry Martin. She did a contest surfing a balsa board, and apparently what I read is that she has been disqualified because balsa boards were not allowed to be surfed.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
And if that happens...
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
That's the problem.
If that happens, is an issue because then, you want to put together in a pack together, it's like Formula One driving, like every car needs to have the same specification, same thing, and then becomes boring.
And also, it has absolutely nothing to do with when probably yourself or I or many, many people that I know, when they go surfing, it has nothing to do with that. No. Their whole surfing experience, I look at it and I could be completely unaware of professional surfing or what was happening there. It wouldn't make any difference to my experience when I go surfing. So it's not my surfing reality. I don't need it to be.
Definitely. But it's like maybe it's because that reason that not so many people, they follow competitive surfing or pro surfing as in other sports like golf, for instance, where you have like the golfers, they really follow the pro golfers to try to learn something, to see the perfect shot and whatnot, and people buy merchandise and whatnot. And for pro surfing is kind of abandoned to itself, to this little world.
It's human nature. It's human nature to aspire to be and to appreciate and to follow the top pros. It's human nature. And, the assumption is that you should be riding what they ride. But the reality of it for many surfers is no, you shouldn't ride what they ride.
Yes.
It's not the right surfboard for you.
Exactly. Do you agree on the statement that, let's say, the large majority of surfers today are not riding the right board?
Yes, I do. I really do think that. There's so many preconceptions and I'll give you an example. There's a word that's used constantly in the marketing of surfboards and technologies, and it's the word light. And it's a very warm and fuzzy word. A surfboard needs to be light.
Yes.
Well, I've proven beyond any doubt that for my personal surfing experience, light is not right. It's not the the end of the be all. I used to chase that, as a shaper and a board builder. I was fanatical about because I'd shape the boards and I'd glass them. And I had a notebook and I'd measure absolutely everything, all the materials at all the different stages. And the goal was to make my boards as light as possible. And I believed, that was right because that's the height. And then one day I actually mentioned Josh and Terry Martin before. I was reading, so this is 33 years ago. I was reading a surfer's journal and there was an article in there about Terry Martin and I think a guy called Jeff Logan. And they'd started making surfboards out of agave stalks.
Yes.
Right? And I was fascinated. And then suddenly I thought, actually, I know what they are. They grow here in New Zealand. And so I went around and found agave stalks and I collected a whole bunch of them and dried them out. And I thought, okay, I'm going to make a board. And then I thought, okay, well, what am I going to make? How can I put this project to something that actually gives me the most meaning? So at that stage, I had this very lightweight. I'd been competing in the Oxbow in Hawaii, Longboard contest, the first one. And I made a board and it was lightweight and I would say it was the best board I'd made, cutting edge, at that stage. And I'd surfed it a lot and it was a really good board. Oh, well, that's what I need to do. I need to copy that board out of this material. And so I did. And it was absolutely amazing because I took it to the beach to try it out. And, and I'd done a lot of agonizing over it because noticeably heavier. The board was noticeably heavier, right? And I thought, well, I don't even really know how it's going to float. And I assume it'll sit lower in the water. And the first thing I noticed is actually it floats fine. And I jumped on and started paddling and it's like, this thing paddles great. And it was a low volume 9-1 that I was able to duck dive. And the agave board actually duck dived better than the foam one. And I thought, that's strange. But I think what it was is it just stayed under the water just a little bit longer before it popped up. And anyway, then time comes to swim around and catch a wave, and I paddle into this wave, and the board's just amazing on the takeoff. It just really rock solid on the drop. It connects at the bottom. It turns off the bottom. Wow. And I'm going, why is this board so lively? Why is it so lively? It's quite a bit heavier than the other board. And that agave board was such a good board. I rode it for 2 years solid. And then I thought, I've got to get off it because I'm not experimenting. I'm not, fulfilling my creative passion. I have to stop riding it. Mm-hmm. So I did. I stopped riding it and I started making other wooden boards and experimenting with the materials of wood in other ways. But I never, ever made another lightweight board for myself. And whenever I get a board, so that was 33 years ago, right? Yeah. Whenever I get a board, I shape myself a board now. I say to the guys in the factory, I don't want it light, put plenty of glass on it. And anytime I do get a board that comes out for whatever reason a little bit lighter, I can feel it. And I don't like the feel of it under my feet. It doesn't feel as engaged in the wave. It doesn't have the same carry. It doesn't keep its speed between turns. It just doesn't sit in the water the same. So, yeah, I learned by experience that everybody thinks surfboards should be light, pretty much. You don't find many people that you can talk to that will agree with me. So I'm like running against the popular feeling about what surfboards should be.
I don't know. Maybe you will be surprised that there will be a lot of people that they think like you. I mean, it's...
There are others.
There are?
When towboards came out. When towboards came out, when people started using towboards.
Towboard?
They didn't make tow-in boards.
Oh, tow-in, sorry.
Yeah. They didn't make them heavier. At first, they didn't make them heavier. They just made them like a regular surfboard.
Yes.
And they were lightweight. And it wasn't long, and they were starting to do things like glass, a crescent, or a lump of metal or something on it to add some weight. because they needed weight for tow surfing. And I just thought it was crazy. It's like, think about what you're designing the board for and make the board purpose-built.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So build the weight into the board.
Yeah, because I guess in that case, the vibration that the boards needs to handle, it's quite heavy, right? Like if I think about those big giant waves, and they're like very choppy, no?
You want the board to sit in the wave. You want it to sit
exactly.
and to hold in the wave, and you also want it to carry, because you get whipped in and you've got a certain amount of speed, probably like a centrifugal speed from being whipped into the wave, but then you don't want to run out of speed while that wave's standing up. You know,
you need the speed, otherwise if you don't have the speed, you are in trouble.
You want the speed in the board, under your feet.
Yeah, exactly. Who, in your opinion, created the best surfboards for big waves?
I think one of the people who's probably done the most is Dick Brewer.
Yes, I agree with you.
I think especially in the early days, he pushed the elements of design into the right sort of package. And then you showed people, got the right sort of rockers and foils and rail shapes. And I think he also did a run of blanks, plugs for Clark foam, so that the blanks that were blown at some point were designed by Dick Brewer, which then basically gave all of those things to the other shapers. So there was a lot of elements in the blanks.
No, definitely.
So that's quite influential.
Yeah, the big gun, also in wood, by the way, also in balsa wood of Dick Brewer are legendary. And I think that period...
Well, it makes sense.
Huh?
It makes sense to have that.
Yes.
To have that momentum and that stability inherently in the board. It's part of the design.
Exactly. Yes, I agree. And what a period, I was thinking about the period of time there, like you have Dick Brewer, Jerry Lopez in Hawaii, Tom Parrish, Ben Ipa, and all these guys, developing like boards for charging wave in a different way that the past, right? The different way of the Greg Knoll time, and where the boards are very heavy. And now,
yeah, well, the guy that you don't hear too much about, but who seems to get credited with the very early days of big wave design is a guy called Bob Shepherd.
Yes, of course.
And of course, Tommy Curran's father, Pat.
Yes, yeah,
Pat Curran.
of course. Yeah, definitely. Those boards are like highly collectible for sure, but are masterpieces, right?
They're amazing.
Yeah.
They're amazing. And that's the thing about surfboards in general, is they're very captivating. There's something about the shape of a surfboard that's, well, you could say it's sexy, but it's an art form, and it's a sculpture.
Yeah.
And it's full of curves. It's pretty to look at. It makes you wonder.
Yeah, exactly. But how we convince the average surfer that, buys an average board, maybe made by, I don't know, like, not like a master shaper, to shift, and to buy like boards from people that dedicated like you all their life into shaping. How is it possible to convince these people to understand that the surfboard is much more important than just like a piece of foam or wood that stays in the water and surf the waves?
Well, some people don't believe it is. Some people will think they just keep riding a soft top, even though their surfing ability is beyond that, because they don't actually realise what it feels like. And I had a guy come in one day who I knew from years ago and kind of drifted out of surfing a little bit, with a family and commitments and stuff, and then started buying soft tops for the kids. And he had a 10-foot soft top that he'd bought for his daughter. And so he started riding it. You know, he's older, he's out of shape, he's a little overweight. So he jumps on this 10-foot soft top, and all of a sudden he's having so much fun. And he's connected back to the buzz of surfing. Well, he came to see me because he was in my area, and we got talking about surfboards, and he was telling me about riding this 10-foot soft top, and he was animated. He was so excited. And I said, honestly, you need to ride a board that's properly designed, you know. And he didn't believe me. And I said, okay, see this one here? So it was a second-hand board. It was one of my shapes, and it had enough foam in it for him. And I said, just take it now, go back to the beach, paddle out, catch a few waves on it. And I really encouraged him to do it. Well, completely changed his mind in the first wave. And I made him one. You know, he realised what he was missing and what it really meant to have a proper surfboard again.
Yes.
So yeah, they don't all realise.
No,
but I think it's a very important thing, and I'd hate to see it get lost. A very, very important thing in surfing is the surfer-shaper relationship. Because if you can walk into a shaper and order a board and have an experienced shaper and have this dialogue and these questions and answers to and fro, and then settle on a board that's going to be built, custom made. And then from there, when it's time for the next one, you come back to the shaper and you talk about that. And it might be that you're replacing that board, or it might be, no, that's fine, I love that board, but I've decided I now need a different type of surfboard for different types of waves. So the surfer and the shaper, they've now got something concrete, especially with the design software, because that surfboard is also, it's not just in the guy's board bag, it's in the software program. So the shaper can bring it up in front of the guy and show him why he likes the board so much, show him the different aspects of the board, and then after hearing what the guy's trying to achieve in the next board, he can say, oh, well, what we need, so just say he wants a small wave version of it. Maybe we drop 3 inches on the length. We add an inch and a half in the width. We add in a couple more litres. We flatten the rocker. But we basically keep all the DNA of that board in it. We just take all that DNA and just slide it in the direction of the surfboard that the guy is asking for.
Yes.
It's not even the surfboard he's asking for, it's the result he's asking for.
Yes, exactly.
And so then the guy gets that board, and when he goes surfing on it, it relates to the other board. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
The
100%.
board, he can relate. And so then he might start surfing some bigger waves. And so then he comes back to order another board, and you go back to the first board, and then you go the other way. So you add a little bit of length, you take away a little bit of width. You might, depending on a situation, leave the volume the same for duck diving, but you've added waterline length, which gives you extra paddle power. You narrow the tail, and it's still got all that DNA, and it still relates, and it'll still feel familiar. It'll be a family.
Totally.
You don't get that by walking into a shop and just spontaneously, grabbing something off the rack and then buying a second-hand board off your friend. You know what I'm saying? I get people coming in, they've got all these surfboards, but they don't relate to each other. So the surfer's getting little bits and pieces out of each one, but they're not getting the whole picture.
Definitely. And I think in this sport, to get something like absolutely custom made for us, for the surfer,
it's special.
It's special, yes. And the price is not that expensive for what it is, right?
If you look at the work that goes into it, it's way too cheap. It's way too cheap. The customer's getting a great deal. The customer's getting a great deal.
Yeah. If you ask a car manufacturer to do like a totally car design and projected for like a driver, like the car will cost maybe 10 times than just the normal one. While
exactly,
if the price of a custom board is not, maybe is what, 1.5 times, maybe maximum two times if you get like very, very different. than the
And the other thing,
stock.
the other thing is when you order a board like that, the people who work on your board, they are putting themselves into that board. They're not just sanding it or running a squeegee over it when they're glassing it. And the guy's not just, shaping it to a method. They're putting themselves into that board. And that board, it must carry their energy.
Yes.
So there's something special about their board.
100%. It's the energy of the shaper, the mana, right? Of the
mana, exactly.
of the shaper that lives in the board forever. It's like that's either you want to believe it or not, and people believe it or not, but that's the way it is. This is the
and if it's a wooden board, it's got the mana of that tree. It's a living thing.
Yes, exactly. If we go back to that, yes, for sure. Hi, we'll get back to the conversation in just a moment, but I would like to remind you that the Temple of Surf is more than a podcast. We created an apparel line inspired by surf culture, from tees and hoodies to caps, so you can carry the spirit of the ocean wherever you go. And if you have kids, check out our surf-inspired children book series on Amazon, fun stories that bring the magic of the sea to life for young readers. By supporting these projects, you're helping us keep surf culture alive and growing. Now, let's get back to the show. In 55 years of shaping, what is the key learning for you? What has been the key learning?
The key learning for me was when I was, a couple of years into it. So this is
okay. We go back into the
very early on, in the 70s. My father, who was very, very good at making things and fixing things, and he's very good with his hands. And when I said I wanted to make a surfboard, he couldn't believe it because I wasn't a very motivated kid, right? And I was bored with, him making things and repairing things. It didn't appeal to me, And when I said I wanted to make a surfboard, he made sure I did, and he helped me in every way that he could. And so he was watching, and I'd make a board and it wasn't that good, or make another one. He'd say, how does that one go? I'm like, I actually really like that one. And after a little bit of this, he could see that it was quite hit and miss. He said to me, okay, you need to capture the shape of the boards that you like. You need to capture the shape. And he showed me how to tape a piece of wood over the bottom curve of the board, take a block of wood and a pencil, and scribe that curve, the bottom curve of the surfboard, onto the piece of wood. And then you cut it out and sand it a little bit, the high spots, until it fits perfectly on that board. You have captured the rocker curve of the board.
Yes.
There it is. You can see it. It's very tangible. And you can put that on another surfboard and go, oh, that one's got a little bit more nose slip, or that one's got a flat spot through the center, or my curve has more tail rocker, or whatever it is. And what I learned to do was shaping a blank, and I'd have that curved piece of wood, and I would sit it on the blank, and I could see, if I take a little bit more out of the tail, it'll sit back. And I would just figure out which part of the blank to shape to get that piece of wood to fit. And then I had transferred that rocker curve into the board I was shaping. And what I found was those boards that I shaped till they fitted that rocker curve, they went well. They automatically had a head start because the rocker curve was right, and it was a familiar feel. And so then you captured the rocker curve, and then if you flip that rocker curve up the other way, the way that it would be if the surfboard was in the water, and then off that rocker curve, you measure up the thickness that you wanted in the tail and the nose. If you come back 12 inches from the nose, measure that up, the thickness you want, 12 inches up from the tail, measure that up, the thickness you want. In the center, scribe a line. Then you've got your deck curve. So all of a sudden, you've got a profile of the surfboard. You're starting to understand and plan out the volume of your board. And so all of a sudden, you're starting to control quite a lot because you've got the rocker control, and you've got it on. There it is. It's a curve. You can pick it up and look at it. Yeah. You can trace around it, and you can start mapping out other things to do with your surfboard. So then when you think, okay, well, now I know, now I've got the rocker captured, I've got my deckline captured, I'm starting to get thickness flows how I want them and foils. Now I'm going to look at my plan shape because we've always had a plan shape. So this rocker curve is like, it's like the plan shape, except it's the rocker shape, right? So then you've got your plan shape and then you can start working on your contours, your bottom contours, and marking out where you're going to put those.
Yes.
And so it's almost like shaping by numbers. And it's the very start of ending up 50 years later using a computer program in a custom-made CNC machine.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of hand shaping, and I felt I was pretty good at hand shaping, and I got pretty good at replicating boards. So because you can get back to the same rocker every time because you've got that rocker stick, right?
Yeah.
So you've got it, you've captured it. And then from that, you start to be able to capture the other things. So you get quite good at being able to shape the same board again, but then if you want to modify it, you can modify it. That's the thing that's hard about capturing a magic board. And, I did that for a long time, thousands of boards, doing it by hand. And then I started using a profile machine. So with a profile machine, you're doing the same thing. You're shaping the rocker straight into the bottom of the blank that you want. And then you can also use the same machine to put contours in. And you can also use that machine to foil your board. So it's a very simple one-dimensional thing, but you can actually use it to almost 3D your board.
Yes.
And then the next move is to go to a CNC program and a CNC machine. So that's kind of been my trajectory in shaping.
Yeah. But because
so I kind of feel, just quickly, I kind of feel like I've got a good perspective on the pros and cons of hand shaping and using machines.
yes.
I kind of feel like I've got a very balanced reference point.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Me, I am more of a radical guy and I love pure hand shaping, but of course I understand.
And the thing is, it's an artistic expression.
Exactly.
And sometimes I think because I'm a passionate, creative person, sometimes I think, I'd love to just throw a blank on the rack, get out my old planer, which I haven't really used for 16 years since I got my machine, and just shape up a board. Like just get those old skills out and just shape up a board for fun.
Yes.
But I always stop myself from doing it because the object of the exercise would be to shape a really good board, right? But then it'd be like, well, now I have to measure it up and recreate it in the program to actually get anything from it. So in other words, I'm not prepared to actually do it. I would rather design it in the program so that I've got it all captured.
I see what you mean.
It's more meaningful.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. It's like in a certain way you grasp the craft and you make it immortal into the computer, and that will last forever and is preserved forever.
You've captured it.
You capture, yes. The other, like, okay, I was saying, like me, I love fully hand-shaped board as an object of craftsman, design, mana, everything. And obviously, I understand as well the fact that we need to have the computer, to protect, replicate certain shapes, to allow as well. You were saying the good thing, like a surfer wants that board very similar with little modification. If you go hand shaping, you cannot catch those little things because obviously hand are not. We are, despite the fact that a craftsman can remember the shape and the essence of a board. There are so many components that they make another board exactly the same but totally different for the surfer. It can be
You can do it. You can do it by hand shaping,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make the most sense to me to do it that way. And, you know, if you go right back to the early days when shapers pretty much didn't measure anything, a hand-shaped surfboard was a free-form sculpture.
Yes.
That's what I call them. It's a free-form sculpture. And it's hands and eyes, and it's in the moment. And it comes out the way it comes out. And what used to happen back in the 70s, I think was a prime example, was every now and then you'd have a magic board. And magic boards were really a thing because there weren't many of them around, but every now and then you'd get one. And it would be very obvious that's a magic board. But it was very, very hard for any shaper to actually do that again.
Yeah.
They would try, but because they weren't measuring anything, they didn't have control of any of the components. It was all kind of done by feel, really, you know. And so what we have now is a very, very high standard of how well boards go. So you don't get magic boards coming along as often. And I think that says something about where shaping has gotten to, because shapers around the world have a much better understanding of the elements, the rocker curves. I mean, you talk to Bob McTavish, for example, he will tell you that, you know, back in the Bluebird days, they hadn't really figured the rockers in that out. They were sort of getting there, but now we've got the rockers figured out, you know, and rail shapes and contours and everything, thickness flows and you name it.
But you need to have the hand shaping experience to be able to use not to be able to, but to be effective to use the machine, right? It's like
I think it's preferable to be a good hand shaper before you start using the design program and using the machine.
Yeah.
I think that's preferable because, like in my case, what I did is I built up a whole library of bottom curves and configurations of deck lines and thickness foils and everything off through my hand shaping in my profile days. I had a whole library. It was like kit set. Well, I had to measure all of that and put all of that into the program. So then instead of it living in pieces of wood and outline templates and things like that, it all lives in the software program.
Yeah.
So that's all experience. That's like 40 years or whatever of shaping experience.
Exactly.
That's collected into one place.
Yes. Makes it special, you know. You need to understand the object that you create, and you cannot just leave it to the machine. It's like that would be too easy.
You tell a machine what to do. You tell it what it's making.
Yeah. Or also you can look at the object that has been created in machine and see if it can be perfected, if it's exactly like how you imagine, how you want it. And again, we go back to what we said at the beginning, you know, like surfboard industry cannot become, it's already the case, but cannot become just I don't know, a ping pong racket industry.
Tennis racket.
Yeah, you produce billions, and then of course the relationship between the shaper and the surfer gets thinner and thinner, because obviously everybody gets the same, and so machine shaping should be used also in the right way, in the right with the right approach, with the right mindset, and of course we don't forget that there is the need of making money to survive, right, and to pay the rents and everything. So we need a part of those boards to be, let's say, non-custom, you know, and to finish in the surfboard rack of the surf shop around the countries, you know, and just to make money out of the economy of scale. And obviously that's part of the deal. I rather prefer machine shape surfboard than a foamy. If you know,
If it came down to it.
yeah, if we come down to it, it's always preferable to buy from a shaper that put passion and time and employ people than just like a piece of plastic that is just comes from nowhere with no soul into it, right? So
Yeah, and I think it comes down to the integrity of the people.
yes,
It's
it
the
does.
intent and the integrity of the people.
Yes,
So there's a big difference between mass producing something
yeah,
and doing something in a cottage industry type of way. And it doesn't matter how you mass produce it. It could be mass produced on a machine. It could be a whole lot of profilers in a big room. It could be a whole lot of shapers, ghost shapers. It doesn't make any difference. It's still mass produced. And then you can look at how good were those ghost shapers in terms of how faithfully they created what they were supposed to be shaping, and how much variation is there. The profile is going to be very good because the profiler will go where it's told, and the machine will also do what it's told. Yeah, it comes down to the integrity. Now, if you look at my example, I work, in a small factory with a very low output, and just about every board is a custom. And I have a very expensive CNC shaping machine. That's completely different to most people's vision of shaping machines, where they're churning out lots and lots of boards the same.
definitely. I mean, you are taking a different approach, right? It's not like mass producing, is focusing on the surfer skill.
It's how to make a better surfboard,
Yes.
because you can use a machine to make a more durable surfboard. But a lot of surfboards that come off machines, the durability suffers because they've been cut out of bigger blanks.
Ah, yes.
The hard foam has been removed. Now, you can remove the hard foam by hand shaping as well.
Yes.
So there's a lot of misconceptions and lack of understanding out there about how surfboards are made.
Two more questions. I'm mindful of the time you're dedicating to me. Let's stick on the shaping first, and then was there like a board in your career that, in these 55 years of experience, that was particularly meaningful for you? That you remember you have done this board, it was like something to cherish in your memory?
There's been a number of them.
Okay, I'm sure.
Because the type of shaper that I am is I experiment a lot. In fact, I've only ridden experimental surfboards for about 20 years. I haven't ridden anything that you would consider to be mainstream or normal. So I've ridden a lot of experimental boards, and I've found a lot of stuff out that you wouldn't normally find out because of that. So I've had some really cool boards. The Datagave board, the one that taught me about the lesson about lightweight, is not the be all and end all. That was a very important lesson to learn. So that board would have to get a mention.
Definitely. And talking you as a surfer, what was the most memorable wave? Because we said the most important thing in surfing are the waves. So what?
Other waves, yep.
Well, what was the most memorable wave of your life as a surfer?
So in 1980, I was on the island of Kauai in Hawaii.
Okay.
And we surfed this, and I'm not even sure if I should name it, but we surfed this kind of secret break,
Yes.
which wasn't that secret. But it was the same swell that we surfed was in the movie A Tale of Seven Seas.
Okay.
And it was absolutely firing that day. And I had never surfed in waves like that. And so that was very special.
Nice.
That was very special. There's another story about that surf, but it doesn't really relate to the answer to the question that you're asking me. But then, there's, I think where I live, the surf is kind of fickle. and inconsistent, but it gets really good. And because it's fickle and inconsistent, you really cherish it when you get it.
Okay.
So I think there's certain sandbanks that, you can go and ride, and it's because I've lived here, pretty much my whole life. You could be riding a wave, say like on a fish, riding a wave on a fish on your backhand, and have this deja vu feeling as if you're riding exactly the same wave in the 70s on your backhand on a fish, because that's what I was doing in the 70s, right?
Okay.
30 years later, it's like deja vu, just the most amazing feeling. And you're aware of it when you're riding the wave.
Yes.
And that makes that wave pretty special.
I'm sure. Yeah. Totally. I see. I was surfing it with you. Cool. So to conclude our interview, there are 6 questions that I ask everyone on the show. So please answer the first thing that comes up to your mind. Okay. Let's try. First, the best surfboard that you ever rode.
Well, it kind of, with surfing and shaping and riding surfboards, it's evolving, but it's also, the goalposts are shifting, right?
Yeah.
So there's certain times in your life as a surfer where you're open to certain things, and certain things happen. Like at the moment, I'm riding, they're finless boards, but I don't really think of them as finless boards. They're hot curls. So they're based on a 1930s board.
Okay.
And I've been riding these boards for like 15 years. That's all I've ridden. And in the last 10 years, I've ridden a variation of a hot curl, which is like crossing a hot curl with a fish.
Okay.
So it's like splitting the narrow hot curl tail and putting one on each corner. So a bit like a fish came about with the thinking of 2 pintails.
Yes.
A pintail on each corner, right? So I call them double hot curls. And I'm getting the most amazing sensation out of riding these boards.
Nice.
And so that's my, very fresh, new experience is riding these double hot curls. But one of my favorite boards ever is a fish.
So I see you like to continue your experimentation, so I am wondering what's next.
Well, I'm way down this rabbit hole with these double hot curls.
Okay.
I love making experimental boards. So I really like delving into things like asymmetric boards. And but my own personal thing is I'm doing these double hot curls. And I just want to see how far I can go with the concept, because I have a gut feeling that there's a lot of potential. But it's something that's very hard to do by yourself, because there's only so many hours in a day. I've got surfboards to make for customers. It costs money to experiment. I haven't got any. You know what I'm saying? It costs money and time.
Yeah, of course.
There's only so much experimental time in the waves, so it's really hard to cover the ground. So it's a work in progress.
Okay, we stay tuned. We stay tuned for news from your side. So,
please do.
Your favorite shaper of all time?
And again, it's a very similar proposition to answer that question, but I'll try not to take too much time on it. If you look at different eras of time, you can see how people were influential. And because of my attachment with a fish, and because the fish has had such an ongoing influence on what surfers ride.
Of course.
Even surfboards that don't look like fishes, the influence that got them to the shape they are came from the fish. So Steve Liss is the brains behind the fish, right? Now, I see Steve Liss in that context. However, if you look at a shaper like Ben Iper, Ben has brought a lot more things to the party over a longer period of time. So for me, as a young shaper and getting really excited about an influence, I would say it was Ben Iper, because there was a real movement in those summertime waves on the south shore of Oahu. There was a lot of stuff that came out of there. Larry Birdleman, Buttons, Mark Liddell, a whole bunch of people riding Ben Iper's boards, and the surfing that they were doing was revolutionary. It was like Larry Birdleman's famous quote, "Anything is possible."
Yes.
You know, the influence they had on skateboarding. Yeah, and that was Ben Iper shaped those boards.
Yeah.
And it's actually amazing because Ben Iper's sons are carrying on that legacy.
Yes.
So it's kind of like Ben lives.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm very influenced by Ben, and he taught me. I was lucky enough to stand in the back of his shaping bay and watch him shape, and then go for a surf with him. And I was like a sponge, just soaking up stuff. Now I'm a light guy, 65 kgs most of my life. Ben's a heavy guy. So his shortboard would be 24 inches wide and 4 inches thick, huge volume. I really liked the look of his boards in terms of the shaping elements.
Yes.
But I could never ride one. But what it taught me was how to take volume and add, also, I use the word excessive, how to add excessive volume into a board by putting the volume in the right places. So you're gaining extra.
Yes, speed. Yeah.
But have the board tuned for a 65 kg guy. And that's taught me so much about shaping surfboards for other people.
Nice.
So, and I got that from Ben. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff come to me by Ben Iper.
Wow.
And it still does.
Of course.
Even in my hot curls, I use stuff that influences and ideas and thoughts that I got from Ben Iper.
Yeah. A legendary shaper and legendary surf dynasty, you know, part of
exactly
shaping surf culture, not only shaping surfboards, but shaping surf culture. And yes, of course, Aquila and Duke Ipa, they're carrying the legacy of their father.
One of those two, and I don't know which one, I was there in the back of the shaving bay with Ben one day, and one of those two, just a little guy, kept coming in, you know, "Dad, come on, can we go surfing?" You know, and Ben's trying to shape this board. And he said, "I've got to shape this board first." Kick the kid out. And then a little while later, the kid will come back, "Dad, can we go surfing?" And this happened 3 or 4 times. And in the end, Ben really barked at him. Like, he really growled at him, you know, and the board didn't come back in. Ben needed to get that board shaped. But, yeah, it was just, I'll never forget that moment. But I don't know which son that was.
I don't know, but that priorities, of course. Personal question, your favorite song or kind of music?
Okay, so I grew up in the 60s and 70s.
Yep.
I was born in 1958. So as a teenager, getting into my teenage years and getting into surfing. Surfing and music kind of evolved in a similar way.
Yes, of course.
Like with drug culture and hippie culture and counterculture, you know, very similar. And so I was exposed to all that. And so the music I like comes from that era. So bluesy rock kind of music, you know, long instrumentals, kind of free form stuff that floats around. My favorite song would be, it's called "It Makes No Difference." And it's by a group called The Band.
Okay.
Who was Bob Dylan's backing band for a while. Yeah, it's kind of a sad song. It's very sort of you know, it's got a lot of feeling in it. There's some great guitar in it. There's some amazing saxophone. But it's got great lyrics. It's just, it's a song that kind of comes down on you, like, it's almost like rains down over you.
Nice.
And when I'm in the shaping bay, I love listening to music that kind of, it's like you create this big bubble of sound and then you're in there creating the shape, and the music becomes this really inspirational, positive driving force.
Yeah.
So I find that 70s music that I grew up with does that.
The two things go together. The two things go together.
Yeah. Exactly.
Favorite surf spot, if it's not a secret?
My local, there's a sandbank that comes and goes, and it's always been there, over the years, but it's not always there. It's the place that where I learned to surf, and it's a place where I learned to make surfboards. And for a few years, we had actually an artificial wave that was built because of a big industrial project. And it was a group of us kids that all grew up in this little village. And I started making surfboards. And so we're all riding my boards on this man-made wave. When the project was finished, the wave went away, but sometimes it comes back and it's the same wave.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And and so that is very special to me. Because that's kind of responsible. Yeah, because it was like a wave pool, I suppose. It broke more often than it would have if it wasn't there. Yeah. So we had a lot of good shaped surf over that period of time. So it kind of kickstarted my surfboard hobby, which kind of grew into a little business.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I owe a lot to that wave.
Favorite surfer of all time?
Yeah. I used to really, when I was a kid and I had posters on the wall and stuff, David Nuiva.
Yes, of course.
For his longboard surfing and also for riding fishes and his part in that whole story. Yes. So it's the same thing, there's over a 50-year span or whatever, 50, 60 years of surfing, there's different guys that came along that did special stuff, But I like paddling out. There's a bunch of mums that I surf with quite a lot. They've got kids and they've gotten into longboarding beginning to intermediate surfers, but they're having such a good time. And from a shaping point of view, I watch people like that surf and I completely understand how they're surfing and how that relates to how their board's going and what they need to change to improve. And I get a big kick out of telling them things like, as soon as you pop up at the bottom of the wave, get your front foot down, get that board driving, get out of that situation where all the white water's around you. Look at the wall of the wave and go there, And you can see them responding to just a little nugget of wisdom. And you can see their surfing improve, Nice. And I get more out of that than necessarily watching Kelly Slater surf. I mean, Kelly's amazing, and I just go, wow, look at that. But a guy like Ryan Birch, he's such a good surfer, but if you look at the style that he brings to it and the kind of spontaneity, it brings it back to that thing that, before surfing became a sport, it brings it back to that thing. It's expression, it's art form, it's a dance.
Yes.
It's not constricted by the competition format.
100%.
Yeah. So, that sort of surfing like Ryan Birch does, I'd have to say.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure going back to David Nauaiva, was not a surfer that was constricted by let's say the expression or what the judges want him to do. It was really like a surfer that had style as one of his main characteristics, and was also a kind of a rebel, I think, outside the...
Yeah, exactly. There's that rebel. There's a rebel in there, and I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I had the pleasure to interview him as well, so it was
cool.
Nice stories. The last question is actually absolutely unusual, but I would like to see your perspective. I would like to know your best relationship advice, where relationship could be friendship, romantic, relationship with the ocean, relationship with a surfboard, if you want. Whatever you want to answer, I'll take it.
Well, I think respect. If you're looking at the ocean, you've got to have respect for the ocean. And you've got to have respect for the other people that you're sharing it with. And it's the same with the relationship with your customers. They need to respect you and you need to respect them. They're giving you feedback or telling you something. You've got to respect that's their perspective. And romantic relationships, exactly the same thing. You've got to have respect. How can you forgive if you don't have respect?
Exactly.
Yeah. And, give and take. There's always give and take.
Yeah, makes absolutely sense. And maybe in a certain way, after over 250 episodes of this podcast, justify the fact that is an unusual question, but makes sense at the end, because whatever you do, like in our personal life or professional life, also reflects in the way we approach the wave and the ocean and the surf, itself. And if we have respect for the lineup, respect for the wave, respect for the ocean, and respect inland for our client, for our loved one and friends, that makes sense.
Who you are on land is who you'll be in the water. So
Exactly.
If you're a greedy person, you'll be greedy in the water.
Exactly.
If you're a kind person, you'll say, "Go away, have a wave,"
Yeah. No. Exactly. I'm a kind of person in land, and sometimes, when I'm in the water, I would need the honk of the car, the same bang bang. Let me pass. Let me pass.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to be a little bit off the lines, to survive in the lineup. But yes, I think what you're saying, it goes back to the aloha, right?
Yeah.
One wave gifted to a person, especially from an elder or from person that surf all his life. It's that spirit that the Hawaiian teaches, of aloha, that is much more than just a word. It's a way of life.
It's a great word because it covers so much.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for being with me on the show today, and I look forward to talk to you very soon.
Well, thanks very much for including me. I've listened to a few of your podcasts, and you're doing a great job. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you. Talk soon. Hi, it's me again. I hope you enjoyed our today's episode. If you want to know more about us, please follow www.thetempleofsurf.com and all our social media. Mahalo!